ABC 7, your most accurate forecast, sponsored by Goldstein, Buckley, Seckman, Rice, and Perks.
More and more, shoppers want to know what's in the food they're buying at the store.
Food labels are supposed to make it clear which foods are healthiest for consumers. But the sheer number of choices can be confusing at best and misleading at worst. Until recently, these labels weren't even regulated.
And I think the general consensus has only added confusion.
That's where Congress stepped in, passing a law in 2016 directing the USDA to create a national standard for GMO food labels, which is why you might see this new term on something you've bought recently, bioengineered.
It replaces what we used to call GMO, or genetically modified organisms.
It's part of a decades-long debate about whether foods boosted by science are safe.
We're going beyond the buzzwords in tonight's cover story. I'm getting you more from experts who reveal the truth about what you're adding to your grocery cart.
Tiffany Cubison is a holistic health coach.
I got into this field because I suffered with a lot of different chronic health symptoms, and I really wanted to learn how to heal myself naturally.
At the grocery store, she's particular about what she picks out.
So I look at the ingredient label and I try to make sure that everything I'm eating is as whole food as possible. And if I see something that sounds like it's scientific or it's lab made, I will do a deep dive into what that means so I can understand what that ingredient is.
Since she started on her health journey, a new term has come on the scene: bioengineered food ingredients.
GMO is something that I was more familiar with, and it's something that I'm really conscious of with my ingredients.
So what's the difference? To get to the bottom of it, I talked to FGCU professor Dr. John Griffiths. He has a PhD in environmental horticulture.
So what bioengineered things are is, for the most part, a change that we've never seen in nature.
Same goes for a GMO, but you can think of it kind of like a middle school math lesson. All squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. Same goes for these two food terms. All bioengineered foods are GMOs, but not all GMOs are bioengineered. Dr. Griffith says it comes down to the technique.
And it may be rearranging genes within the plant. Different genes are turned on and different genes are turned off because they may already exist in the plant, but they're never turned on. There's other examples, and we see things, classic GMO, where genes are brought in from an organism and inserted into another. And that's a little more exotic. It's also quite a bit harder.
The USDA has a growing list of what it considers bioengineered. Right now, if something is made with one of these 14 ingredients, the disclaimer needs to be on the box or bag. For example, these Cheez-Its contain both canola and soy. Both of those things are on the list of 14 ingredients, so they could be the reason for the disclaimer. Dr. Griffith says these modifications are meant to help farmers.
A good example is canola, which has a gene modification in it to help the plant with disease resistance. It's a good thing because it means we don't have to spray chemicals. The plant resists it without any application, but it is a modification that wouldn't have occurred where we couldn't find it naturally.
A big argument against GMOs is the concern that farmers can use more chemicals.
That's not what we're looking at mostly today. We're looking at the reverse.
Of all the studies done so far, Dr. Griffiths tells me none say bioengineered foods are unsafe. They've actually been on the market for years, just without the label.
I encourage people not to be afraid of it.
But the Center for Food Safety argues more long-term research is needed.
I know that that is a concern many people have, and it's a very legitimate concern.
And I don't want to wait when it comes to my health and find out 10 years later that something wasn't good for me.
For now, Tiffany says she'll continue seeking out more information for herself and her clients.
From what I've learned is that certain foods actually are fine to eat unorganic. And the best resource that I have found is the EWG site. And if you go to that website, it will actually tell you what foods are more likely to be sprayed with pesticides. So you should probably buy those organic if you can. This is not really meant to scare you. It's just to make you more informed and empowered to then make your own decision.
Experts in ag say boosting foods with science is crucial for sustainability.
Because we also have this issue of growing more food on less land, and we need to be respectful of the environment that we're basing that production upon. These are huge questions, and so if biotechnology can somehow help figure out the puzzle of putting all these different pieces together, then we need to let biotechnology work, at least explore it.
I reached out to the USDA, who says it's important to note this new term is a marketing standard and does not convey information about the health or safety of a food. They say that goes through agencies like the FDA, the EPA, and they wouldn't comment on some of my other questions due to pending litigation.
Let's get you more tonight. The Center for Food Safety is suing the USDA over the new label, arguing it did not carry out Congress's intent to create clear packaging.
It did not require all foods that contain GE material to be labeled because it made an exemption for foods that contain highly refined GE material.
The nonprofit claims the term bioengineered isn't transparent to shoppers and instead creates more confusion. The appeal also challenges a loophole which excludes highly refined products from mandatory GMO disclosure.
Now, the ABC 7 forecast. Your most accurate